Recent days, temperatures reaching 27 Celsius in the southeast, low 20s further northwest, high teens where we've got the rain spreading through. And that rain will push into the Midlands as well as southwest England during Thursday evening. It clears from Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England. Clear spells here, but also a few showers. And then Friday really is a day of bright spells and showers, feeling cooler on Friday and Saturday, warming up again on Sunday.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello and welcome to We Need to Talk About on GB News with me, Alex Phillips, where we get stuck into the big issues of the day that need looking at in depth. Nothing is off the table and no one will be cancelled for saying what's on their mind. Keeping me company today is former Labour MP and Shadow Minister Steve Pound, and here's what we're discussing on today's show. Liz Truss has been accused of branding British workers lazy. In leaked audio of a speech, the Tory leadership candidates say Brits need more graft and lack productivity. Does she have a point? Plus, police have named the grandfather fatally stabbed whilst riding his mobility scooter will be crossing live to West London for more on the appeal to find the killer. And should cyclists have number plates? Should they be insured and should they be punished for speeding? It's something ministers are seriously considering. That's what we're discussing for the next hour. What do you want to get off your chest? Email me, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or tweet the programme at GB News. First, though, it's time for the GB News headlines.
Alex, thank you. Good afternoon. It's 2 minutes past 2. I'm Bethany Elsey here to bring you up to date from the GB Newsroom. An elderly man who was stabbed to death while riding a mobility scooter has been named. Police have described the attack on 87-year-old Thomas O'Halloran as a shocking act of unprovoked violence. Detectives have released images of a man fleeing the scene armed with a knife that they want to identify and speak to as a matter of urgency. Chief Superintendent Sean Wilson is asking the public for help.
Yesterday, an 87-year-old grandfather on a mobility scooter had his life needlessly snatched away in a shocking act of unprovoked violence. We believe that Mr. O'Halloran was stabbed in Western Avenue shortly after 4 p.m. yesterday, Tuesday, the 16th of August. Before managing to travel 75 yards or so on his mobility scooter to Runnymede Gardens, where he flagged down a member of public for help.
Inflation is rising at its fastest pace in 40 years as the Consumer Price Index reached double figures at 10.1% in July. It's a sharp rise from June when it stood at 9.4%. It's understood rising food prices have made the biggest impact. It's after figures released yesterday showed wages falling at their fastest rate since records began. Head of Personal Finance at AJ Bell, Laura Sutter, says she's not expecting inflation to come down anytime soon.
On average, everything you buy is now 10% more expensive than it was this time last year. The 10.1% inflation isn't the peak. We're expecting now inflation to rise over the next few months and then to hit around 13% in October when the energy price cap comes in. The hope is then that prices will start to fall a little bit, inflation will fall back, but we're not expecting it to fall all the way down to that 2% target that the Bank of England has.
The government has announced that survivors of the infected blood scandal will be given £100,000 in compensation. It's the first time the victims will receive payments after 4 decades of campaigning. 2,400 people died after being infected with HIV and hepatitis C in the 70s and 80s. Rosemary Calder, whose son Nicky was one of the victims, says those affected need more acknowledgement of what happened to them.
You do feel guilty, even though we didn't know any different. We listened to the doctors. They told us it was a super new treatment for those that are ill and maybe reaching the end of their lives. They need some kind of peace. They need to know that there's been at least some acknowledgement of all the wrong that was done to them and of all their suffering.
In England and Wales, police officers who are violent to women will be dismissed and barred from rejoining the profession under new guidance. The College of Policing launched a review into the current penalties for breaches of police standards in a bid to improve public confidence. It's after a number of cases involving officers committing offences against women, the most high-profile being the death of Sarah Everard. Cyclists could face a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit and may need number plates. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps told the Daily Mail there should be a review on cycling rules. He vowed to create a death by dangerous cycling law that would treat bike riders the same as motorists. The new law would be added to the Transport Bill, due to be put before Parliament in the autumn. And parts of the UK are braced for torrential rain and potential flash flooding after weeks of intense heat waves. The Met Office has issued amber weather warnings for thunderstorms across southeast England, where fast-flowing floodwater could be a danger to life. Yellow weather warnings cover central and southern England and South Wales. Meanwhile, a hospital in Nottinghamshire has urged patients to only attend its A&E when it's urgent or life-threatening after the building was flooded. Bassett Law Hospital in Worksop says it was a result of heavy rainfall. Staff are working to fix the problem. This is GB News. We're bringing more news as it happens. Now let's get back to Alex.
A little bit more graft, a tad more elbow grease, a change of attitude for the worst idlers in the world. Has Liz Truss never stood at a bar in Ireland or sighed at the siestas in Spain and frowned at footage of the French burning tyres at the smallest amendment to labour laws? It's the tired old adage of the Brexit campaign, made by those who have clearly never collected trolleys or pulled pints in their lives and quite evidently hire home help from abroad. But today, when it comes to jobs at the bottom rung of the ladder, the pot washers, fruit pickers and hoover pushers of Blighty, there does seem to be a dearth of homegrown grunt. Why would an employer offer wages commensurate with effort when someone from a far-flung land regards the monthly paycheck a small fortune? Meanwhile, everyone in Britain now requires a degree to do just about anything, as lifestyle bragging on social media demonises humble work and humility. With the mangle long gone as machines take over every gruelling chore, can you really blame someone pouting for pounds rather than scrubbing a toilet? Yawning staff shortages in the lowest paid sectors is not a uniquely British phenomenon. In a mechanised, digitised global economy where the West is told to skill up and achieve more, it would be crazy to expect anything less. Well, shall we listen to some of that leaked audio which was released by The Guardian newspaper? It appears to show the Foreign Secretary criticising British workers, saying they need more graft.
There's a slight thing in Britain about wanting the easy answers, and I think that's my reflection on the election and what's gone before it. And the referendum is like, we say it's all Europe that's causing us all these problems, it's migrants that are causing these problems, and actually what needs to happen is, a bit more graft. And it's not a popular message.
Well, a popular message it hasn't been indeed. That audio recorded some years ago and described by the Trust campaign team as being out of context. But does she have a point? I'm joined now by Natalie Alexander, who's a director at Alexander Hancock Recruitment in Manchester. Natalie, when you advertise certain positions, is there a lack of British workers who want to get those jobs?
OK, it's not there's a lack of British workers that want those jobs particularly. It's just that there's been a complete change in the work ethic and work attitude. That's what the difference is. And I think that is what Liz Truss is referring to. Not sure we want to emulate China, but I think we could go back to emulating the work ethic that we used to have in the 1950s.
So you're saying very much that Liz Truss does have a point. There has been a change in the way that people think about work and what they're prepared to do to earn their salaries.
Absolutely, but it doesn't happen at the stage at which they come into work. It happens at the stage at which we're bringing up our children. We brought up our children in this generation to be entitled, to think that everything gives them immediate gratification, that they should have everything, that when they go into the world, they are this amazing human being, and which they are to us personally. But actually, we're not teaching them about work ethic. We're not teaching them about work ethic at home or schools or universities. And that's where the problem is. It's not the people who are actually currently in work, it's the ones that are coming through.
That's interesting. I mean, I don't have children, so don't have accounts of this firsthand. But when do you think this change came about? Because certainly from the age of 14, I was delivering newspapers, collecting trolleys, working at the local supermarket, pulling pints, just about everything to get me through, buy a car and go to university. So when did it all change?
I think it changed when my generation became parents. So I've got two children, one 23, one 27. My daughter, high flyer, great school, great university. Where did she learn the most before she started work? When she learnt through COVID in a restaurant, that's when she actually really grafted for the first time in her life. We brought up when I was growing up, like you, I went to work at a bakery when I was 16 in order for me to be able to afford to go out. My parents bought me presents at my birthday or at Christmas. I was told if I wanted to achieve in life, I had to work hard in school and work hard when I first got my job. I did data input as a graduate for 6 months. Why? I knew that I could do more than that, but that was my job. I was paying my dues. And unfortunately, my generation of parenting has failed these kids terribly.
The question is, how on earth do they afford their smartphones and their Alco Pops and their tattoos and all the various things that these millennials and Gen Zers seem to like?
Get a job, work hard. That's what I did. I used to earn £10 a week on a Saturday working in a bakery in order to be able to afford to go out. But we haven't brought up our children like that. We wanted to give them better than we had. So what we've done is we've given them everything. And we've told them that the centre of the world operates around them. And it just doesn't work like that. We have a real choice to make in this country. First of all, if you're born in the UK, you're born with 5 aces in your pack. So we have a head start on everybody else. We then have to make a decision as to how we want to be in the future. Do we want to create a successful country for us all that benefits us all? And that only comes from improving the work ethic that just does not exist in this country at the moment. And I love this country, and I am dreadfully upset to be able to say that about it. But genuinely, we're all entitled snowflakes.
I love the fact you don't milk your words, do you? But
No,
would it be fair
I
to
do
say... Would it be fair to say, though, in certain sectors, wages have been drastically compressed because recruiters are able to find foreign labour for far less money than it would cost to hire a Brit?
Right. First of all, I don't operate in that sector, particularly I operate in the office sector, so that actually is not the case. Salaries have increased. I know inflation has gone up, and therefore the salaries don't seem to be as much as they are. But on the whole, my clients are paying really good salaries, and we are struggling to find people. I can literally show you. I've got hundreds of jobs on my desk looking for people to be filled. I had somebody yesterday who's supposed to go for an interview at 5:15. This has never happened before. Well, this bit has. And she didn't bother to turn up, even though I called her, wished her luck, emailed her and texted her. When I texted her at 7 o'clock yesterday evening to say how unimpressed I was with her behaviour, do you know what she texted me back? Oh, and I said, I'm unimpressed with your behaviour and I'm taking your details off my files. She didn't apologise. She just said, OK, thanks, Natalie, take care. That's the attitude.
Well, there you are, Natalie Alexander there, lifting lids. Certainly when it comes to the people of Manchester, you're not pulling your weight hard enough. Thank you so much for your candour, Natalie. It really has been a really eye-opening interview and a delight to have you on. You know, you had Super Nanny. I think Natalie should be like Super Boss. That's Natalie Alexander, Director of Alexander Hancock Recruitment. Keeping me company for the duration of the show is former Labour MP and Shadow Minister Steve Pound. Do you agree with Natalie and, in theory, Liz, that we've lost our work ethic?
Oddly enough, no. I don't entirely agree. I have to say, though, I'm completely obsessed with the image of you as a 14-year-old pulling pints. I think
Not 14, it's a bit older.
Oh,
I wasn't working for a black market pub.
It would have been a fairly popular pub, if I may say. We could have a whole series of, what jobs we did. I used to ride a bone shake around West London. One of those old bicycles, black bicycles, with a basket in front with all the vegetables and fruit in it. But look, there's a real conundrum here. We've got some of the longest working hours in Europe and some of the lowest productivity in Europe. And bizarrely, places like Germany, understandably maybe, but Italy and France have higher productivity. And one of the problems is how you measure productivity. Traditionally, it's done in terms of industrial output, how many widgets you make, how many cars you make. What we do in this country is we don't do heavy metal bashing industry. We do the new industries. We do not the new leisure industries, the new IT stuff. We do things that are very difficult to actually measure. I mean, look at, we're the world leaders in film production, in computer games, in all these things like that, which are very, very hard to actually quantify because you can't simply count, the number of times you film a Netflix program or something like that.
I mean, you're a former Labour Shadow Minister. Would it be fair to say that the new Labour's big push to get everybody through the university process is potentially put paid to people who are prepared to roll up their sleeves and do the grunt jobs?
That's a really, really profound point. I mean, I remember Tony Blair, his famous thing, education, education, education. He said years later, he said, well, if I had my time again, I'd say it, but in a different order. And I think the point about 50% of the people going to university was silly. What we need is vocational training, vocational education. And certainly in my day, when you had secondary modern schools and grammar schools, there was a stigma attached to it when you should have actually been proud. I mean, my son's an electrician. I'm proud of the fact he works with his hands and he makes people's lives better. So we'd actually need that vocational training. But I don't think that actually relates to, sort of any innate laziness on the part of the British people. But isn't it bizarre? You talked about, people in Ireland propping up bars having pints, which I do resent that stereotype personally, but never mind. But, the idea of the long siestas and, the French setting fire to sheep and tyres and God knows what. And yet their productivity is actually surprisingly higher than us. So what's going on there?
I mean, as well, do you think that, there has been a bit of a cultural change and part of that could be down to the fact that jobs that once upon a time were appealing, people think, well, I'm not going to earn good money anymore. I can remember when I was still at school being told that, if you become a sparky, you can earn a lot of money because we don't have enough of them. And then we had a big wave of migration from Eastern Europe and the wages of those professions fell drastically.
Well, not in every case. I mean, this is. electricians were very popular in Poland because one of them was Lech Wałęsa and he became president. So, it's a fairly good career path there. But look, I don't actually see that as a case. Look, I think there's a pride in manual labour that we possibly have lost, and there's this kind of snobbishness. Now, I used to go around a lot of schools in my old job, and I used to get so depressed at the number of girls in girls' schools to say, I want to be a beautician, I want to be in tourism, and the blokes say, I want to be in the media, I want to be in the media. Well, I think there's probably 5,000 people applied for your job and you got it. It's not a great career opportunity for everybody out there. And I think that's the problem we have. I also think there's a difficulty in the relationship between labour and capital, which sounds tedious, but in Germany, all the big factories, and Volkswagen, pretty damn successful. They have a workers' council, they have the people on the board, you actually have workers directing the company. And I think that's a good thing. It's still a bit of them and us in this country. But ultimately, let's never forget, there's certain things we do here which are absolutely brilliant. You didn't get the James Bond films made anywhere else. You get them made here because we do it best.
Too true. There are
Nobody
a lot of
does
things
it better.
that we do great, Stephen. Love your comments. I want to have your comments as well. Have you been one of those people who've been grafting since you were a wee nipper, essentially shoved up chimneys and behind supermarket checkouts? Email me, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or tweet us at gbnews so I know what you, the nation, really think. You're with GB News on TV and radio. Coming up, the fatal stabbing of a grandfather in his 80s killed whilst riding his mobility scooter. We're going to be crossing live to Greenford in West London, where police have appealed for witnesses. It's time for a short break now and a check on the weather.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Further showers to come, but mostly in the south today. Hit and miss thunderstorms in places as well. Could cause some serious impacts in one or two spots, but it will be fine. In the north, a ridge of high pressure is building in here. So for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, and then eventually central areas, we're going to see plenty of dry and bright weather. Still some areas of cloud floating about, but increasingly sunny spells coming through. However, it's across South Wales into southern England where the focus for the heavy showers will be. And for the southeast and London area in particular, there's a signal for 50 to perhaps 100 millimetres in a few spots in just a few hours, and that would cause serious impacts. Some flooding, for example, and tricky driving conditions. Amber warning enforced because that's an awful lot of rainfall to fall in a short space of time. But these are hit and miss thunderstorms, so not everyone will be affected. They do clear away overnight, a quieter night to come. Clear spells for many for a time before thicker cloud pushes into western Scotland and Northern Ireland. And it's a cool night where we've got the clear spells through central areas, but a lot of cloud remains in the south and the northwest as well, so 15 or 16 here. Outbreaks of rain then spilling into Scotland, Northern England and Northern Ireland as well during Thursday morning, eventually reaching parts of North Wales, where it will turn heavier for a time, as well as northwest England. But after any early showers clear in the southeast, just one or two in the afternoon, nowhere near as lively as recent days. Temperatures reaching 27 Celsius in the southeast, low 20s further northwest, high teens where we've got the rain spreading through. And that rain will push into the Midlands as well as southwest England during Thursday evening. It clears from Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England. Clear spells here, but also a few showers. And then Friday really is a day of bright spells and showers. Feeling cooler on Friday and Saturday, warming up again on Sunday.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A man in his 80s has been stabbed to death in broad daylight in West London. He has been named by police. Thomas O'Halloran, who was riding a mobility scooter at the time, was declared dead at the scene despite the best efforts of paramedics. Well, I'm going to first speak to Stephen Pound, who's joining me in the studio today, because, Stephen, you actually know Tom.
Oh, there's nobody in Greenford didn't know Tom. It's my constituency, and, I live about half a mile away from there. In fact, I was at Hamwell Town last night, which is just on the other side of the A40 there. Look, Tom was a real character, a real local character. He used to be outside Greenford Station playing the accordion, sometimes occasionally a harmonica, but usually an accordion. And he was you see the smile on the face of him. He was a sweet, sweet, lovely man. And what he's been doing for the last couple of weeks is Ealing Council has been having a big scheme for Ukrainian refugees. And he was collecting money for Ukrainian refugees. Now, there's things you can't say at the moment because we don't know the facts. There's been a picture released and there's been, one of the local residents who I happen to know says that there was a gang of people around him. But all I know is that right now, here and now, Greenford is actually hurting about this because we had a fatal stabbing in Acton 2 days ago where a 58-year-old woman was killed by a younger woman. Ealing is not a dangerous, dodgy place. It's not the Wild West. And somebody like Tom O'Halloran was a very Ealing person. He comes from the Irish community there, which is very deep in our part of the world. And he was well-liked and well-loved. But above all, he was one of those characters that make an area. He's not that person who cement the community. He'd always have the smile and the people say, hello, Tom, And it's the brutality, the cruelty, or the apparent random nastiness and the evil of his death actually really is corrosive to us. And it's going to take a while for us to recover. And I know there'll be special services at Our Lady of the Visitation and St John Fisher Church, which is very, very close to where he passed. It's going to hurt, but I never knew any of Tom's relatives. I didn't even know if he had relatives. But what I would say is if he didn't have an immediate family, he had a Greenford family, and everyone in Greenford and my part of the world is mourning him today.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to know about Tom, who has lost his life. But let's now speak to our national reporter, Paul Hawkins, who is at the scene and may be able to give us some more details on what the police are saying. Paul.
Yeah, I'll give you just a few more details in just a moment, Alex. I would say that what I've been hearing from people here in Greenford, and I've been here since 6 a.m, correlates exactly with what Stephen has been saying. Really, someone who was all over the community, playing his accordion outside Greenford Station, just there behind me. Been speaking to shops there, people there knew him. Even if they didn't know his name, they knew who he was, and they would chat to him. They would find out he was really friendly. He'd also be playing the accordion outside Tesco's at the Hoover Building, just down the road, really close to where the paramedics treated him yesterday. Now, in terms of the crime scene, that is still cordoned off. We heard from the police earlier on. They are continuing their investigation. We've seen forensics teams scouring the area, taking pictures, gathering information. What we do know is that where he came to rest was 75 yards from where the attack took place. Now, police have released an image of a suspect that they want to speak to in connection with this incident. He was seen fleeing the scene armed with a knife. He was wearing grey shorts, a dark coloured t-shirt, a white baseball cap and white patterned builder-style gloves. Now, if anyone knows who he is, indeed if he is watching this, they are urging him to get in touch with the police in connection with this incident. He was seen fleeing the scene armed with a knife. Now, in terms of Thomas O'Halloran himself, as Stephen was saying, a real pillar of the community in this part of Greenford. We know that he used to come into shops like this, get his scratch card, his wife would go in and buy it for him, he'd wait outside in his mobility scooter, and then he would come inside to bakeries like this. This is the bake station. This is one of the places where Thomas used to come, although he was actually known by a different name. We can actually speak to the manager, Rustam, now. Hi Rustam, you okay?
I'm fine, thanks.
Yeah, are you all right if we just speak to you while you're working? Is that all right? Now, everyone's been paying tribute to Thomas this afternoon, but you actually knew him as Terry.
Terry, yeah, most of us in the community, we've known him for Terry. I've known him since knee height, and Terry was his name. I literally found out today that he was called Thomas.
Yeah.
But then the picture confirmed it when I saw that picture of him on the red mobility scooter. So it's very sad.
Well, yeah, how did you feel when you found out? Because you told me that you've grown up with him, right? From when you were little?
Yeah, so I've seen him in the community for like the last 15 years. And it's just sad to know that someone would take his life over a bit of money or whatever it was, but he wouldn't hurt a fly, man. He was a very nice, genuine guy, and it's just sad news. Very sad.
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit more about him, because unfortunately, people like myself didn't get to meet.
So when I was younger, I remember him having a three-wheeler car. It was very distinctive. So he used to come out, start joking about, start laughing. We were like the local bakers. He would come in for his bread and his breakfast. He'd go next door for like his drinks, his scratch cards, whatnot. So if you lived in Greenford, you're guaranteed, like, you must have seen him. Yeah, and he used to play the xylophone quite recently. He used to say his pension, it wasn't enough for him, and he wanted a bit of extra money, whatnot. So he played the xylophone like in the evenings. But it's very sad.
And we're hearing that he also used to raise money for charity. He was raising money for Ukrainians.
Yeah, exactly. So he was a very charitable person as well. And man, he used to do a lot for the community.
Is that your fries that just need switching off? Is it? Sorry about that. Yeah, that's one of the things with live TV. He's just going to check his fries at the moment. But yeah, and but just shocking just to hear what happened.
Yeah, literally, I found out this morning. I wasn't fortunate enough to watch the news yesterday, and it's a big shock. It's a massive shock because we see him every single day. He's like an active member of the community, all is about. So it's just very sad to know what's happened, man.
And we understand that his wife used to wait outside the shop, and or his wife would go into the shop and buy the scratch card while he would wait outside as well. He was married as well, yeah?
Because he wasn't able to walk, so his wife used to do most of the walking. When it came to like go inside the local off license or like even inside, he would always send his wife inside. And they used to buy scratch cards every day, and as a joke I used to say to him, when you win it's going to be like 50-50 whatnot. So that was literally last week. He was telling me that his three-wheeler got impounded for something silly that he done. It's literally, he told me a lot.
Well, I think we have lost our national reporter Paul Hawkins there talking about the brutal attack of Thomas O'Halloran. You're with GB News on TV and DAB radio. Coming up, should cyclists have number plates? Should they be insured? And should they be punished for speeding? Well, it's something ministers happen to be seriously considering. Now, though, it's time for a check on the news headlines with Bethany.
Alex, thank you. Good afternoon. It's 2:31. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. An 87-year-old man who was stabbed to death while riding a mobility scooter has been named. Police have described the attack on Thomas O'Halloran as a shocking act of unprovoked violence. Detectives have released images of a man fleeing the scene armed with a knife that they want to identify and speak to as a matter of urgency. He was wearing grey shorts, a dark T-shirt and a white baseball cap. The cost of living is rising at its fastest pace in 40 years as inflation reached double figures at 10.1% in July. According to the Office for National Statistics, that's a sharp rise from June when the Consumer Price Index stood at 9.4%. It's understood rising food prices may have had the biggest impact. Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss are trying to win over party members in Northern Ireland as they battle to become the next Tory leader and Prime Minister. The Foreign Secretary highlighted the importance of fixing the Northern Ireland Protocol. Meanwhile, Mr Sunak outlined the need to rebuild the economy and restore trust in the government.
I was brought up in Paisley in Scotland, in Leeds in Yorkshire. So I guess you could say I'm a child of the Union. Since becoming Foreign Secretary, I have taken on the issue of the Northern Ireland Protocol and seek to resolve the issues that we face. Because the fact is that the protocol is undermining the Belfast Good Friday Agreement. It is causing unfairness between the communities in Northern Ireland.
We must restore trust. We need to rebuild the economy, and we need to reunite our country. Now, when it comes to restoring trust, for me, that starts with honesty. And as you can see in this leadership race, I've not chosen to say the things that people may want to hear. I've said the things that our country, I believe, needs to hear. I want to give you my commitment that I will do what it takes to fix the protocol and protect Northern Ireland's place in our United Kingdom.
Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss speaking there. You're watching GB News on TV, online and DAB+ radio. We'll get back to Alex in just a moment.
Setting off from a beach in northwestern France, the latest small boat heading for UK waters. GB News has witnessed a cat-and-mouse tactics between the police and the people smugglers. The police setting off tear gas to disperse the migrants. The life jackets hardly even hidden, awaiting the next group to attempt the crossing. And the documents showing some have already applied for asylum in Europe. Join us for our Migrants exclusive on Farage tonight at 7.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to We Need to Talk About. This is GB News and I'm Alex Phillips. From Scotland to Northern Ireland, the travelling circus of the reality show to become the next Prime Minister has landed in Belfast. In a land where there's currently no administration and a couple hundred Tory members, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak once again battle it out to head up the government in London. And, of course, promise to fix the omnishambles that is the Northern Ireland Protocol. Well, The Battle of Belfast commenced but an hour ago, and who better than Dougie Beattie to get us up to speed? Dougie, tell me, what has been said in those hustings?
Well, as you say, I'm in Belfast, but I'm actually in Stormont Estate. The hustings are taking place not too far away from here. We're not allowed to exactly tell you the location because of security reasons until that's over. But yes, the first thing that we thought would be on the agenda, the first question out of the box was definitely on the protocol. Conservative members very concerned over how this place behind us is not up and running, how it's not dealing with day-to-day issues, and how on earth the Tory government that actually were part of the protocol intend to fix it and how they intend to stand over it. Liz Truss saying that the bill going through the House at this minute in time is perfectly legal. She will stand over it, and she's saying that she will definitely tell Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House in America, the EU and the Republic of Ireland, that this is what they're going to do and they're going to stand by it. But she fully expects then, of course, the institutions here behind us, the power sharing, to be up and running. Rishi Sunak is telling us that it is anything, he will do everything to try and fix the protocol, but both of them do pretty much support this bill. The protocol has good sides and bad sides to it. The biggest problem with it, of course, is triangulation. Raw goods come from Northern Ireland. Anywhere from between 12 and 20% of the food that goes into the UK come from this part of the UK, and it travels into Britain and then comes back as processed food. It's that journey back that is adding the complications onto Northern Ireland. She's also said that UK courts will stand over any divergence in Northern Ireland. That means that the unionists will be happy with that, because that brings back in to the whole process consent, and we will see how that bill looks when it comes out back out of the House of Lords. She's then talked about, she was questioned about her tax policy. Now, this has been a running sore since these hustings have started. The whole way through from London right to here, it has been consistent. I don't think there's any separating the two in this. Rishi Sunak saying that her tax policies will not help the most vulnerable. She's claiming that tax, of course, has been at a 70-year high, and it will stifle growth and it will make a recession harder to pay back the national debt. I don't pretend to know which of those will come out right on that. I think you're looking at someone like Liam Halligan for doing that. But they both are very much in those trenches with that, and they tend to stay by that. The other issues that have really come to I suppose the front here is in and around China. She has said that on national security terms that they really want to have even closer ties with America and Japan, and watching which corporate companies are being bought over by what countries. And that is interesting, because that brings in food security, it brings in fuel security. If we just look at what's happened to the EU with Russia and the shutting off of gas pipelines, and how you're really held to those people. So that as well is quite interesting that that's coming out in Northern Ireland. The stuff in around the border, there has to be a question to it, there has to be an answer to it, and I think that it probably will get there in the end. Stuff in around abortion, Liz Truss has said that one law must apply across the UK, because she was challenged of how that was put in through the Houses of Parliament, and she really, I suppose, was trying to win the hearts and minds of the Tory party in Northern Ireland. I think she's probably done that, and I think because Rishi was formerly a Chancellor, that some would suspect that he already had the chances to do this stuff on taxation when he was there.
Dougie, thank you so much for that fantastic summary. All the usual sort of clickbait quips and promises, but, you know, what would you expect? Dougie Beattie there, our Northern Ireland reporter. Steve, anything there that you want to riff on? Protocol, tax, China?
Oh, God, how long have we got? Look,
not long.
There's some meetings you have just to say you've had a meeting, and there's some meetings you have to actually achieve something. This was a tick box one, just to say we've done the meeting. There's less than 600 Conservative members in Northern Ireland, and if you remember, back in 2010, they created a thing called UCONF, which was the Ulster Conservative Unionist New Force. Well, this was the idea. That's what it was called.
What?
It's called UCONF. And it was Reg MP on one side and David Cameron on the other. It was Ulster Conservative Unionist New Force. I think they got 245 votes. And so the idea that there's a Conservative presence in the north of Ireland is for the birds. It just isn't there. So this was one where they're actually just going through the motions and say they've actually done it. But I think what's difficult about Liz Truss's one is, I mean, I read about a charm offensive, but she's been very offensive to a lot of people, not just to Nicola Sturgeon, but now to Michelle O'Neill, the leader of Sinn Féin, saying that Sinn Féin are seeking to drive a wedge between Northern Ireland and Great Britain. Well, that's what it says on the tin. That's what Sinn Féin are for heaven's sake. Now, I think in some ways the Conservatives are making the same mistake that the Labour Party made a few years ago. You know, we chose a leader who worked very well within our party. People loved him within the party, but we couldn't sell him on the doorstep out there. I think Liz is appealing to her own people, but that is just not going to play very well out in the real world.
That it ain't. Steve, thanks so much for your thoughts. Remember the email, gbviews@gbnews.uk, if you also have thoughts. Now, there will be many a sleepless night in the UK tonight. The tossing and turning while fearing the worst. As it's predicted, tens of thousands of school leavers look set for disappointment this year. With 80,000 fewer A's and A stars predicted than last year in one report, 40,000 students could miss out on their university of choice, which means one particular organisation will have a whole load of work on their hands. UCAS, who run the clearing system trying to match courseless students to studentless courses, may well have a lot of unhappy teens to reassure, with the boss of the admissions service saying more students should be steered towards apprenticeships to bring down soaring demand for places. The number of university applicants is expected to hit 1 million in the next few years, up from a record 700,000 this year. But is coughing up tens of thousands for a mortarboard and scroll really the only route to success? Or are we placing too much emphasis of life inside a lecture hall rather than one in the real world? Lord Sugar, Sir Richard Branson and Bill Gates are among a long list of industry pioneers and multi-billionaires who didn't seem to need a two-letter acronym after their name to change the world. Well, joining me now on the show is John Cope, who's the Director of Strategy, Policy and Public Affairs at UCAS. Who better to speak to? John, going to be a busy day for you tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we're seeing is the record demand for university. We're seeing record demand for apprenticeships. But you're right, this year is completely different to previous years because this group of young people, you know, they've had a really tough time. They've never done high stakes exams before. They missed their GCSE exams because of the pandemic. So they are having a different experience. And you're also right that in the last 2 years, they people have had teacher assessed grades, whereas this year, people have done exams, they've got proper moderated results, which means that, you know, we are expecting fewer people to get the top grades. But it's important to add that that's entirely normal. Over 97% of people have got an offer from university, and by the end of it, we're expecting more people than ever before to be placed.
So how do you go about the process of a very tearful teen who looks at the letters on their results paper and thinks, I haven't made it, I don't get to go to a particular institution that I really have pinned my hopes on. What do I do now?
Yeah, well, I was one of those people that didn't get their predicted grades. And my advice is, don't worry. Most people don't meet or exceed their predicted grades. That's entirely fine and normal. If you haven't quite met it, come to ucas.com, come to us. We can offer you some advice and support and guidance through that. Talk to your first choice, talk to the university. Lots of universities will show lots of flexibility and actually take people who are a near miss. So don't worry. Go to ucas.com, talk to university, and if you go through all of that process, there's still clearing available to you. And there's about 27,000 or so courses already in clearing, and there's also loads of degree apprenticeships and other apprenticeships as well. So talk to university, come to ucas.com, and there's loads of choice out there if you haven't quite made it.
The great academic musical chairs. But do you think that there is, your boss has said that she wants to see more students steered towards doing apprenticeships, sort of real-world training rather than just academic degrees, because there's far more demand than there are places. I mean, is that because there are fewer places, more students?
So we see record demand, as I said at the start, so there's more demand than ever. And we're also seeing the number of 18-year-olds go up as well. So there is huge amounts of demand and support out there. But that stereotype that you just gave of universities as kind of academic and in a lecture hall and stuff like that isn't quite true. You know, most universities deliver apprenticeships now, and we'll continue to grow that. So the choice that's out there for people is really, really broad, and we don't steer anyone towards any choice. You know, it's a really personal decision about whether university, college, or an apprenticeship is the right choice for them. So if you come to ucas.com, what you'll see there is all of the choices that are available, loads of advice, weighing up the pros and cons of which choice, and we'll help you, guide you on that really personal choice.
John, thanks so much for coming on, and I hope you've reassured lots of students listening today. John, the aptly named John Cope, helping students the country over cope with the disappointment of not expected grades. Did you get your expected grades? Did you go to university?
I left school when I was 15. We didn't have a sixth form. I think the day that one pupil in Fulham actually went to university was probably headlines in the Fulham Chronicle. But what I did is a slightly strange thing. I then went to work, and when I was about 29, 30, my union sponsored me to sit the open entrance exam for the University of London. And I went to the London School of Economics. I haven't got 2 letters after my name. I've got 3 letters after my name, BSc. But on the other hand, I've got kids, and my daughter decided that she wanted to go to university. My son decided he didn't want to go to university. You love and respect them both. So I think what Mr. Cope said is really, really important. Is just saying don't panic, but also ask yourself the question, is this really for me? Am I going to university because of peer pressure? Because my parents want me to do? I'm going to be saddled with that massive debt for God knows what. No. There's so much more that you can do and you can achieve without going to university, because we read in the paper last week about they're cancelling English literature degrees because university courses are becoming more geared towards actual achievement, things like dentistry and medicine. Something like that, fair enough. But the other ones, there was one course, large chap who got the degree, you probably read in the papers last week about the chap who got a PhD in masturbation.
No.
He did, it was in the paper.
It's 3 in the afternoon, Steve.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, the point is it's to do with Japanese comics, but, there's a lot, the Spice Girls studies and Beckham studies, all that, park all that nonsense.
A lot of Mickey Mouse courses out there,
Yeah, but, what I'm saying is, I think what Mr. Cope is saying is that don't panic, don't go back. You're going to be all right one way or the other, and don't forget you can do resits as well. And isn't it probably better, instead of going on a gap year, to actually do your resits and then get a proper university?
Yeah, life is a long and winding road, and you never know where it's going to take
Very
you.
profound.
Just stick at it. Now, it's the twilight minutes of today's show, which must mean it's time for the storm clouds to roll in, some crash, flash and rumble of news to rain on our souls. It's time for my agenda. Ugh, those petulant pettifoggers in Brussels are once again cutting off their nose to spite their face, this time blocking British scientists from participating in European collaborations that we signed up to be associate members of when we left. That's despite agencies like Horizon and Copernicus allowing boffins from other non-EU countries to join in, from Israel to Turkey, Bosnia to Nigeria, Pakistan to Paraguay, and even Russia. Thing is, though, it actually turns out the brightest and best are usually found in British universities, numbering half of the world's top 10 institutions and a quarter thereof the whole total. It's also worth remembering the world's most formidable collaborative research project, that big old Large Hadron Collider of the European Organisation for Nuclear Research, CERN, is based in, yeah, you got it, Switzerland. Now, for decades, China has imposed a draconian one-child-per-family rule, creating a land of only children, nominally to prevent a spiralling, out-of-control population, but also, I rather suspect, to socially engineer a population of easy-to-control automatons. Well, that's now a thing of the past under President Xi, whose expansive ambitions to turn China into a superpower means he needs more workers in more factories. The man with a very long-term plan to take over the world must be looking at the West, where birth rates have plummeted as we erode our social values and indebt the young, pretty smug that we're doing the rest of the hard work for him. Now, apparently the RAF is pausing much-needed recruitment because all the would-be conscripts are white, with sources saying the mad diversity policy is actually a risk to national security. I can't imagine when you're wrapped in a boiler suit with a next-generation aviation helmet concealing your entire face, chasing MiGs over the North Sea, that the colour of skin really matters. It didn't seem to be a problem in the Second World War, where Commonwealth servicemen fought shoulder to shoulder with Allied troops, or, of course, the Gurkha Regiment, the most fierce and feared fighters in the British Army. And swallow this for a cocktail of guaranteed opprobrium. Tony Blair plus mask mandates. Yet the old gaffer's titular institute is calling for face nappies to be mandatory again this winter. I'm sure there are a few people who wouldn't be against a muzzle covering his mush. And what did the grey concrete say about the red tarmac? He's a right psychopath. And on such thoroughfares as psychopaths oft pedal, and worse still, off it too. Especially in London, where two-wheeling seems to have become the preserve of the chia seed-buying self-righteous, shaking their angry little kale-powered fists at anything with emissions. Well, apparently it's time for them to also obey the highway code, with Grant Shapps saying they should get number plates and insurance just like other road users. I can't wait to see pelotons of lycra-clad midlife crises with their personalised lentil with and one cherished number plate. You're falling apart there, Steve. You almost put me off my script.
I'm sorry, that's just genius. I'm sorry, kale-stained fingers. I can't
You made it even better. Anything you want to touch upon?
Yeah, well, look, I don't want to come on and say, in my day, but, but in my day, motorcycles used to have number plates on the front. We used to call them bacon slicers, and they'd actually be curved over the front wheel on the mudguard, and they were flipping lethal. And, and you couldn't read them anyway, because you had to look at them sideways. So I think the idea of some of these lycra-clad velociraptors, they're sort of self-righteous, they're all colourblind, you know that, don't you? None of them can recognise the colour red, not one of them. So they go belting through there, causing flipping mayhem left, right and centre. So I think if we're going to do something about it, either make them ride in cycle lanes, which means we're probably going to have more cycle lanes, but actually have separated cycle. Yeah, OK. Well, I think, we win some, we lose some. But the other is maybe they're going to have to wear bibs, with a number on the back. Yeah, no, I don't mean those.
Kale-stained bibs.
I mean, no, like football bibs, when you do training. But with maybe, you'd have to have insurance. Third-party insurance, why not? To actually ride a bike. The problem is, what about the kids riding to school? Do you have an age limit? Do you then have a test? Because we used to have
cycle proficiency. I remember that. Weaving around the cones in the playground.
Have you got your certificate?
I do. Yeah.
Respect.
Don't ride a bike.
All I've got is a BSc.
Well, you did go on a bone shaker with your bacon slice and all the other wonderful times you brought back from the dead. Steve, it's been fantastic having you on the programme today. Well, you've been sending your views in throughout the show. Mark says that most jobs just a few years ago used to be very hard. Now they're very, very easy and people don't want to do them. Jones says there are thousands on the unemployment list who should be earning their benefits by doing farm work or anything else needed. And Amy says your guest was spot on talking about kids working to learn the value of money. I've worked since the age of 12 and 13, babysitting for family. I remember when everyone used to do babysitting. Stephen says contributing factor is the safeguarding rules effectively removing kids from part-time weekend and school holiday working. That is where the work ethic starts. Couldn't agree more. Get a bone rattler, as Stephen Pound used to ride, and put newspapers through doors. That's about all I've got time for today. Join me again for We Need to Talk About on GB News at the same time, 2 o'clock tomorrow. Coming up next, it's The Briefing with Tom Harwood. First, though, there's a little time for a peek at the weather forecast. Bye-bye from me. Have a great afternoon.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. Further showers to come, but mostly in the south today. Hit and miss thunderstorms in places as well. Could cause some serious impacts in 1 or 2 spots, but it will be fine. In the north, a ridge of high pressure is building in here. So for Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, and then eventually central areas, we're going to see plenty of dry and bright weather. Still some areas of cloud floating about, but increasingly sunny spells coming through. However, it's across South Wales into southern England where the focus for the heavy showers will be. And for the southeast and London area in particular, there's a signal for 50 to perhaps 100 millimetres in a few spots in just a few hours, and that would cause serious impacts. Some flooding, for example, and tricky driving conditions. Amber warning enforced because that's an awful lot of rainfall to fall in a short space of time. But these are hit and miss thunderstorms, so not everyone will be affected. They do clear away overnight, a quieter night to come. Clear spells for many for a time before thicker cloud pushes into western Scotland and Northern Ireland. And it's a cool night where we've got the clear spells through central areas, but a lot of cloud remains in the south and the northwest as well, so 15 or 16 here. Outbreaks of rain then spilling into Scotland, northern England, and Northern Ireland as well during Thursday morning, eventually reaching parts of North Wales, where it will turn heavier for a time, as well as northwest England. But after any early showers clear in the southeast, just 1 or 2 in the afternoon, nowhere near as lively as recent days. Temperatures reaching 27 Celsius in the southeast, low 20s